Welcome back to Wellness Lenses. Today we will talk about the many ways that anxiety and ADHD are different. Not only will you have a better understanding of these two conditions by the end of this video, but you'll also have learned useful things that can help you or someone you care about deal with their mental health issues. Anxiety and ADHD are very common, and today we're going to figure out what's going on with these two conditions. But before we get into the specifics, it's important to note that anxiety and ADHD often happen together. They are different, but sometimes they overlap, which makes it even more important to know the differences. Let's start with anxiety. Anxiety is a normal reaction to stress, but it turns into a mental illness when it lasts for a long time and becomes difficult to handle. It feels like a steady hum of unease, a worry that won't go away. Different kinds of anxiety exist, like generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, social anxiety disorder, and certain phobias. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. This condition makes it hard to pay attention and also involves being hyperactive and acting on impulse. It can happen to both kids and adults. Think of your mind as a radio that keeps abruptly changing stations. This is how someone with ADHD might feel. So what are the main features that set these two conditions apart? First up, let's talk about origin and duration. Anxiety often happens when we are facing certain stressful events in our lives, like upcoming tests or job interviews. It's like that anxiety attack we've had from time to time. But if it lasts for a long time, it turns into chronic anxiety. Things are a little different for people with ADHD. It often starts when we are kids and doesn't go away as we get older. It's like having a constant companion that makes it hard to stay focused and control your urges. In other words, anxiety can come and go, but ADHD usually stays with us for many years. Secondly, let's talk about physical symptoms. Anxiety can exaggerate your body's stress response, which can make your heart beat faster, your palms sweat, and you may even tremble. It feels like your body is trying to tell you about the stress in your mind. If you have ADHD, on the other hand, your body might not react in such a dramatic way, but you might feel like you can't sit still for long periods of time. In other words, anxiety can really work out your body, but ADHD is more about having trouble keeping your mind straight. The third difference has to do with focus and concentration. Having anxiety is like having 100 open tabs in your mind. Your thoughts are all over the place, which makes it hard to focus. You might worry about something that will happen in the future or get stuck in what-if lists. It's like trying to read a book while being interrupted all the time. ADHD, on the other hand, is hard in its own way. It's like having a mental radio that changes stations all the time without your permission. If you're not interested in the task at hand, it might be hard for you to focus on it for a long time. In this case, it's like chasing butterflies. They always fly away before you can catch them. That's why anxiety and ADHD tend to make your thoughts jump around. The fourth difference has to do with your emotional response. A lot of the time, anxiety turns up the emotional volume, making you feel very worried, scared, and anxious. It's like having a fear wizard inside your head that makes up the worst things that could happen. On the other hand, ADHD has its own emotional side. It can result in being impatient, angry, and impulsive, which can make you look like you're on an emotional roller coaster. You feel like you're on a speedboat ride with your feelings, and you're holding on tight to the handlebars. In other words, anxiety makes you worry a lot, while ADHD can make you act without thinking. The fifth difference has to do with treatment approaches. Medications like SSRIs and therapy like CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, are often used together to treat anxiety. It's like giving your mind a map to help it get through those stressful times. On the other hand, people with ADHD often need a set of different tools. We're talking about medicines like methylphenidate and sometimes options that don't contain stimulants. A big part is also played by behavioral therapy and some clever ways to organize things. To help you stay focused and on track, it's like giving your mind a Swiss Army knife. So, anxiety has its own set of treatments, and ADHD has its own set of tools. Now, here's where things can get really interesting. Problems with anxiety and ADHD don't always stay in their own lanes. They can coexist sometimes. In other words, you might have to deal with them both at the same time. It can feel like trying to untangle a knot of wires when you have both anxiety and ADHD at the same time. If you have anxiety, you might worry about missing a deadline, and if you have ADHD, it might be hard to concentrate on the task at hand. It's like getting hit twice in the face, but it's important to see and deal with both for treatment to work. This overlap is one reason why it's so important to get a full evaluation from a mental health professional. If needed, they can help sort things out and make a treatment plan that addresses both anxiety and ADHD. Even though they can work together, figuring out who they are is the first thing that needs to be done to effectively handle both conditions. To sum up, anxiety and ADHD are two different but complicated conditions. The first step to getting the right help and treatment is to understand the differences. But remember that getting help from a mental health professional is very important for getting a correct diagnosis. With this information, you'll be better able to handle the complicated world of mental health, whether you're on your own journey of self-discovery or helping a loved one. See you in the next video.